What's up, friends? Jason here. I'm really excited about our guest today, Tommy Bowden, the former Clemson head football coach. He's the son of the legendary head coach, Bobby Bowden from Florida State. He's also the guy that brought Dabo Swinney to Clemson. This is a great conversation. Sports, football, coaching, legacy, and faith with Tommy Bowden coming up right now on Sports Spectrum.
Welcome to the Sports Spectrum podcast, where faith and sports collide. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
Welcome, everyone, to the show. I am Jason Romano. Thank you for tuning in to our Sports Spectrum podcast. Of course, make sure you check out our website, sportspectrum.com, for all of our content, articles, devotionals, podcasts, all available for free at the website. You can bookmark that and go there every day for new content at sportspectrum.com. And then make sure you sign up for our weekly newsletter, the Sports Spectrum Weekly Newsletter. It's an email that comes to you every single week, and it kind of keeps you updated on all that we're doing here at Sports Spectrum, the articles, the podcasts, the devotionals, the different stories that you may have missed, all come directly to you in your email if you sign up for free at sportspectrum.com for our weekly newsletter. And then when you do, you get a free 10-day daily devotional, a little gift that we got for you, just a way to say thank you as you sign up for our Sports Spectrum Weekly. And you can get that devotional. It's written by professional athletes, by the way, and it's available all for free at sportspectrum.com. We also want to say thank you to our partners today, Convoy of Hope. They do incredible work fighting hunger, poverty, and suffering in the United States and throughout the world. They're a faith-based nonprofit organization, and they have a driving passion to feed the entire world through children's feeding initiatives, community outreaches, and disaster response. Convoy of Hope is the real deal. If you're looking to get involved with a ministry that you know is doing amazing work, Christ-centered, faith-based, Convoy of Hope is the place. Check them out. ConvoyNation.com to learn more, to donate, and be a part of the great work that Convoy of Hope is doing. ConvoyNation.com. We're really excited to welcome Tommy Bowden here today to Sports Spectrum, the longtime Clemson head football coach. He was their head man right before Dabo got there. From 1999 to 2008, he had a good career there, 72 wins, 8 bowl games. Of course, Tommy Bowden, the son of the legendary Bobby Bowden, the legendary Florida State Hall of Fame football coach. And Tommy saw his football journey start by watching his dad as a coach and then going to play for his dad as a football player in the mid-1970s at West Virginia. And Tommy discovered during that time that he wanted to get into coaching himself. And he had stops at West Virginia and Florida State, Duke, Alabama, Kentucky, Auburn, and of course, Clemson. And he's the guy, Tommy Bowden is the guy that brought Dabo Swinney to Clemson and in many ways set the pace and set the standard for what has turned out to be this incredible run of success at Clemson over the last 6 or 7 years with Dabo Swinney. Tommy Bowden had a lot to do with that. So we talk faith, we talk patriarch as far as his dad and the influence that Bobby Bowden had on Tommy and his brothers and his whole family, and really setting the standard for how to live a godly life. And then we talk about the influence that Tommy had on Dabo and bringing Dabo Swinney to Clemson, and how Tommy wants to finish his life, how he wants to finish the race and live well in his later years. Tommy's now in his mid to late 60s. Tommy Bowden from Clemson is joining us here on Sports Spectrum. Love this conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Hey, Tommy, how are you?
Things are fine down here in the panhandle of Florida. I live in Destin, Florida. It's going to be another hot and humid day.
I love it. I love it. It's good to have you here on the show. It is summertime, and that's the best time, certainly with the warm weather coming up here. Let's start with that last name Bowden, and the legacy that the name Bowden carries, you being the son of certainly legendary college football coach Bobby Bowden. And I have a great Bobby Bowden story I want to share with you in a little bit. Just curious, as we talk about your journey, what are the earliest memories of being around your dad and certainly the game of football as a kid?
Of course, the earliest memories of my father, from small tyke, 4 and 5 years old, just remember being around the house and being active, having an active father and mother in your life. One of the big issues with a dysfunctional family today is the absence of the father. And I never had that problem. I always had one. I can remember early coaching memories of him was when he was the head coach at a place called Howard College in Birmingham, which is now Sanford. And me and my brothers, they used to take bus trips back then. They didn't fly, didn't have money, but they would take bus trips. And then me and my brothers would go to the games and lay up in the old luggage racks where they used to have the thing where we put your luggage. We would lay up there and sleep until it was time to, get to the game and on the way. Those are the first memories I have of him as a coach. And of course, if you're familiar with Sanford Stadium at all, it's kind of down a little pit. And we go up there and slide on the hill and watch the hill during the game. We never watched the game. But as a father figure, just as in the structure of the family, nuclear family unit or biblical unit, I remember my father always being present from a coaching standpoint. Those were some of the first football memories I have him being a football father.
You played under your dad as well, right, at West Virginia. How was that having your dad be your coach? Because I know I coached my daughter in softball, like Little League softball, and it was hard for her to look at me as anything but dad. So when I would coach her, I'd say, no, I'm coaching you right now. I'm not dad, even though I'm always dad. What was that like for you when you were having your dad as your coach?
A typical college experience or athletic experience, there's highs and there's lows, even when your father is the coach. I walked on at West Virginia. I was not a scholarship player. I walked on and earned a scholarship and eventually ended up starting, but it was kind of a rough haul in that way. But I remember 1974 when my father, at that time had its only losing season. It's the only losing season in West Virginia. And they had a players only meeting without the head coach. You discuss, are they working us too hard? They don't know what they're doing. I'm sitting in the team meeting talking about my father, the other players. But the next year, that was one of the lows as far as playing for him. One of the highs the next year, he I think won 8 or 9 games, went to the Peach Bowl, then left for Florida State. But that was my first year starting in 1975. And always kid with him that you finally had enough foresight and wisdom and knowledge to start me, and you won and put you on your path to success and Hall of Fame. I played, but I wasn't a very good player. But I remember it's like there were lows and there were highs, but they were mostly highs because he mostly won and I was on the team. So my experience with my father as a player was good mostly. There, like I said, there were some lows, but there were certainly more highs than lows.
Did you know early on that the trajectory of your career was going to take you, your path in football was going to take you from playing into coaching?
Yeah, I really did. I think back in about 7th grade, I was 13 years old, I had to write a bibliography of our lives and hand it in. I remember specifically putting that I wanted to be a college coach, and more so college and high school. Had my father been a high school coach, I would have desired to be a high school coach. He just went right into college coach, and that's all I ever knew. So, way back when I was 13 years old, I knew that or felt like God was leading me in the coaching profession. At that point in time, I didn't know it was God. Even though I had been baptized when I was 12, accepted Christ, I had the knowledge and wisdom of a 13-year-old Christian. But early on, I knew I wanted to go into coaching, and that was my only goal and dream and ambition as I went through high school, started college, and as soon as I got out of college, started directly in my coaching profession.
Faith, of course, a staple in the Bowden household, and you've alluded to your faith. Can you tell me about your personal relationship with Christ and kind of when it took shape and became real for you? You talked about being a kid and being baptized, but I think at that point, especially watching other people that I've talked to and listening to other people that I've talked to, it doesn't take shape until they make it their own faith. Can you kind of walk me through your journey of faith and when Christ became your Lord?
Well, I think fortunately for me, I had the way God intended back in the old, when he chose the Israelites and the Jews and the Jewish family and how the men, the parents were supposed to be great leaders for their children. My parents were sure that way. So I was brought up in a home where church attendance was not, you didn't get to vote on it. It was mandatory. I was run by a dictatorship. You were going to church. You were going to Sunday school. You were going Wednesday night. You were going Sunday night. What the old, I've always been Southern Baptist, what they call Sunday school in the morning before church, and training union is what they used to call in Southern Baptist religion or denomination back in the old days. So I always went, and there were no votes. So I had the background and knowledge of what salvation was, what Christ did, the sacrifices he made. At 12 years old, I was baptized. That was the thing to do. We were moving from Tallahassee to West Virginia. My father was coaching at Florida State as an assistant, and talked with the pastor and said, listen, it's about time for me to publicly recognize that I'm a Christian and be baptized, and what it represents symbolically. But as I grew older, I was, the wisdom of 12 or 13-year-old, it's more what you don't do as a Christian. I didn't drink, smoke, cuss, or chew, and didn't date women that do. That's kind of the old thing as you're younger. Then as you get older, you say, wait a minute, God's more interested in your heart than he is things you do and don't do. And it's more how you treat people and the things you do. I'd started dating my wife when she was 15 and I was 16. And we've been married now for 44 years, but we dated for 7 before we went through college and got married. So in a relationship with a girl, how you treat them in a godly way to date, and obviously an ungodly way or biblical way. So those are things that started formulating my mind. And I think when I was a junior in college, I think the Holy Spirit finally got a hold of me and said, listen, if you're going to profess Christianity, if you're going to go to Fellowship of Christian Athlete meetings, which I did, I'm still involved with to this day, but if you're going to go to those meetings, you're going to go to church, you're going to say you're a Christian, then I didn't wear one of those old WWJD. Remember those WWJD bracelets? What would Jesus do? Oh, yeah. They were a big fad maybe 20 years ago. But I didn't wear one, but I thought in my heart, listen, I'm going to profess it. I better live it. If I'm going to talk the talk, I better walk the walk. So that particular team, I think I gained a little more wisdom. And I think that's probably a process a lot of Christians in my position go through, that you're raised in a Christian home. But it's a continual growth process, and as far as your spiritual maturity. So as I've gotten older, you realize that God's more interested in how you treat people. He's more interested in your heart. Yes, he still wants you to tithe. Yes, he still wants you to go to church and to Sunday school and have your Bible study and prayer and all those things. But those things don't get you to heaven. I think it's a show of faith's an action where if you're going to have it, then it better be reflected in your heart and actions. But so as I got older, I became more mature. Mostly, I think more in junior in college is when I said, wait a minute, I better get serious.
Hey guys, let's take a quick break and tell you a little bit more about our partners, Convoy of Hope. And right now in the United States and throughout the world, countless families are living on the fringe or have fallen into the depths of poverty and suffering. Convoy of Hope is standing in the gap, fighting hunger, poverty, and suffering in the United States throughout the world as a faith-based, nonprofit organization with a driving passion to feed the entire world. In partnership with their friends and fans, they advocate and serve those in need by delivering hot meals, groceries, haircuts, health and dental screenings, family portraits, socks, shoes, clothing, and so much more. They serve communities in need throughout the world, and you can serve as well by supporting Convoy of Hope's innovative international programs. They've done amazing work and partnered with NFL teams like the San Francisco 49ers, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Carolina Panthers, and many, many more. Listen to a few of these testimonials from people, specifically Vance McDonald, who played for many years with the Steelers. He says, Convoy of Hope is unbelievable at giving back and sharing hope with people across the world. To be able to give people hope and to use our platform to give back to those in need, I'm just thankful to be a part of it. Listen to actress Zendaya as she says this about Convoy of Hope. She says, my generation has the opportunity to change the world With Convoy of Hope, I've raised my voice and am using it to give people hope. Race car driver Joey Logano says, one of my favorite events throughout this initiative has been the mobile distribution event with Convoy of Hope in Darlington, South Carolina. It was my favorite event because with just one truck, we were able to provide necessary supplies to almost 1,000 families. You can see what Convoy of Hope is doing, and you can also be a part of it. So join Convoy of Hope and check out the website, convoynation.com, to partner with them, to donate, and get involved. Convoynation.com. We're so glad to have Tommy Bowden joining us here today on Sports Spectrum. And Tommy, I had the honor of meeting your father when I worked at ESPN back in 2014. He joined one of our fellowship groups. In fact, it was the debut of a fellowship group that we had put together at ESPN, about 7 or 8 of us coming together as believers in Christ, just encouraging each other, taking a pause from a busy day and the work that we were doing to just come together and fellowship. And it happened to be a day when your dad was at ESPN. I think he was promoting a book and kind of doing the ESPN car wash where he was going show to show and doing shows like Mike and Mike and Sports Center. And he actually took a few minutes as he was walking through and saw our fellowship group to stop in to encourage us as we were doing our fellowship group and to give us an encouraging word and share an encouraging word with us about how Christ has impacted his life. We took a picture. It was a really cool day, and he was just phenomenal. So I say that because that leads me to ask you, how influential was your dad, Bobby Bowden, in your spiritual life, in reflecting Christ and your faith in the Lord? How much of an influence was your dad on you?
That's back in the old biblical days, Jewish days. It was not uncommon for 4 generations to live together. Right now, my father's 91, lives in Tallahassee. My son and grandson are here. That'd be like all 3 of us going over and living with him in Tallahassee. Right. And have 4 generations in the same house at that. And I can see the importance of it, because then the patriarch, the father, if he's a godly man, has an opportunity to influence his son and grandson, great grandson down the line. One of the most vivid things I remember seeing him do as I went to college and started my own coaching career. I'd come home in the summer. When I was at Clemson, I'd fly into Tallahassee, recruit, and I'd stay at the house, if I stayed overnight. And was it every morning, 5:30, 5 o'clock, he gets up, gets his Bible, gets all his study books and study guides, usually 4 or 5 of them. And then he goes through a process every morning of reading. And, a lot of people read the Bible. I think those programs of reading the Bible in 1 year are good. The first time I did it several years ago, it took me about 5 years, I think, to really study it. But he would do that. And to this day, he still does it. I do the same thing. That's the first thing I do. Before this Zoom call this morning, I got up and got my study book, got my study good. And didn't so much read the Bible as try to study the Bible. Take your time, get where it's quiet, and for peace. And the Holy Spirit can talk to you. But that's would be one of the most first things I remember my father from a spiritual standpoint of him doing, still does, and has affected my life to this day. I'm trying to pass that same legacy on to my son. And I see him doing that with his grandchildren when he sends me a snapshot on the phone of him reading a biblical story to his son at night in bed. So that's one of the first things I remember from a godly standpoint. My father has left me something from a legacy standpoint that'll affect me and my children, or his children and grandchildren.
Do you have a story about your dad when you saw him being intentional with his faith as a football coach, using football as a vehicle to share the gospel? Because even at that day at ESPN, I watched him and I'm like, oh, he realizes that he's here today, not to just promote a book, not to just say, hey, people, how you doing? Shake your hands. And he was just like the nicest guy, but he was there to preach the gospel. I sensed that even at that stage and at that different venue in a place like ESPN, Can you share, I'm sure he was like that as a coach too, and I've heard many people kind of share their stories about the impact Coach Bowden has had on their life from a spiritual perspective. Do you have a story where you saw him using football? Maybe there's so many of them that you can't share them all, but a story where he shared his faith and used football as a vehicle to share the gospel?
Well, he's always kind of shared it. He and I have really gone on speaking tours about coaching. He's always done that part of it. One of the aspects, just from a kind of a foundational standpoint, which I think you're talking about, two stories, one directly, one indirectly. One directly is the fact I remember, in the back of my mind, I always had in my mind I wanted to coach when I was in my mid-50s. I never wanted to coach as long as my father in his 80s. Yeah. I wanted to coach mid-50s and do other things. Like now I do faith-based speaking, which I enjoy doing, flying around the country, speaking, doing podcasts like this. Yeah. And I remember he told me one time, I said, man, why do you want to coach your 80? He says, I think I can be a bigger influence for Christ as the head coach of Florida State, as opposed to being retired and going out and speaking. You're going through ESPN, you're on TV, or you have an opportunity to speak a lot more frequently as a head coach than being out of coaching. So that was one thing that stood out, that he wanted to coach till he was, as long as he could, to advance the kingdom of God. He's 91, and he's going down, taking as many people as he can to heaven with him. He's still doing it at 91. That would be one directly where I heard him say, hey, I want to stay in coaching profession. It's a high-profile profession, strictly to try to advance the kingdom of God as much as I can. The other, indirectly, I was a young coach with a young graduate assistant at Florida State with my father. That's how I started my coaching profession. I took off. Yeah. We were playing LSU at that time at LSU. He had signed a contract. Florida State had signed a contract, played LSU in Baton Rouge 5 times in a row because they didn't have any money to bring them to Tallahassee. They had to play on the road to make money. I think he won 4 out of those 5. But this might have been the first time it was a big game, Florida State, upstart program, trying to win, going to LSU. LSU at that particular time was trying to hire my father to come over there. I think he said in his mind that, if I beat him, I'm probably going to stay at Tallahassee. If I lose, I might go to LSU. But I remember before the game, I'm nervous. I don't have much to do as a young graduate assistant. You really don't. All the responsibility goes to the full-time coaches.
Sure.
I'm walking through the dressing room. It's right before we're getting ready to kick off, and I've already gone out there and warmed up, come back in, and not much room. And I look at him, and he's laying on his back in the coach's dressing room in the corner, got a little duffel bag under his head for a pillow, and he's sleeping before the game. I'm saying to myself, saying, how can you do that? But there was a piece about him, that he had. And I think that's more so. He always made this statement. Anytime I'd speak with him, I use the same, I steal from him like most people do as far as when you go out and speak, you try to make it your own. But I heard him say this. He always said, football is a huge, huge priority in my life, but it's not the priority. And at that particular time, sitting there, seeing him sleep for the biggest game of his career, he said, man, you talk about peace of mind. They said that, personal relationship with Jesus Christ gives you a peace of mind and a comfort. That was a good indicator right there that he had a peace of mind that I need to find out in this profession what makes him sleep like that.
That's awesome. I love that story. And it's funny because it's fruit, right? Like when you walk the walk, you also have to talk the talk, but then you see a peace. There's a peace that surpasses understanding. We hear about in the Bible that comes when you accept Christ as Savior. But I know for a lot of people who are believers, sometimes they get caught up in their work and they lose the main thing. They don't keep the main thing. I'm wondering for you, did your mission for you as a follower of Christ ever get clouded during your time as a head coach where maybe you got caught up so much in the wins and the losses in coaching that you forgot, or maybe not forgot, but it kind of drifted a little bit into being caught up in the football aspect, like you just described, and your dad said the priority of football, but having it become more of a priority than maybe your faith. Did that ever happen to you as a coach?
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that I never made bad decisions in coaching from a personnel standpoint, recruiting standpoint that didn't reflect a very Christian attitude. I think I made more good decisions from a spiritual standpoint than bad decisions. I surely made some bad decisions. I'm sure reflected negatively on my faith. But I always remembered. I said, if I ever can become a head coach, how am I going to respond to bad times? If I lose a game or lose a couple in a row or something bad happens, how am I going to respond? Let's see. So, in order to try to eliminate that from an ungodly response getting entrenched in my body, I did what my father did. I said, okay, I'm going to start every day. If I got a 7 o'clock staff meeting, I sometimes go on 5:45, 6 o'clock, get my Bible, get my study book, and I'm going to try to prepare myself mentally for whatever's going to happen. As a head coach, when you open that door, I had an open door policy, but at that early in the morning, nobody's in there usually, but I do my Bible reading. But when I open that door at 6:45, 7, there's a good chance somebody's going to be there. There's going to be a player that's homesick and wants to go in. One just got caught driving and had marijuana in his car. One of them's got a girl pregnant. One of them's parents died. One of them flunked the test or got cheating on. Something's going to happen. I got 85 teenagers, 100 and some teenagers, plus a staff. So I think that kind of preparation for the high intensity and anxiety and stress of that job helped me more than anything prepare myself for the day. Yeah, there was always negative things happening, bad things happening, but I do think that time in the morning, saying, all right, God, when I open that door, whatever's going to happen, prepare me, give me the godly wisdom to help me make the best decision I can for what's sitting out there in that lobby when I open that door, whether it be a coach that's wanting to leave or a coach that's frustrated or a player or an athletic director or whoever. So, there were some bad times, but I think that relationship I saw from my father helped me prepare on a day-to-day basis of the stress and anxiety and the difficulties that were going to happen in that profession.
We're talking to Tommy Bowden here on Sports Spectrum. Dabo Swinney is somebody who I want to ask you about, Coach, because obviously he replaced you when your time at Clemson came to an end, but you were the guy that brought him to Clemson from the research that I did. So I'm really fascinated by the time that you met Dabo. Do you remember that? And when you first had an interaction with him and saw something?
When I was coaching wide receivers at Alabama, he was a player. And he walked on. He was just a lot of walk-ons make good coaches because they're overachievers. They say, hey, I didn't get a scholarship. I've got to go above and beyond the call of duty to beat out that guy on scholarship. They usually have tremendous work ethics and character and perseverance and pay, all that stuff. And I walked on how to fight those same things. But Dabo showed some of that. And he didn't play much. He played a little bit later when I left, but when he was with me, he didn't play much. The scholarship players were better. And then when I went to Clemson, I had a position open. Now, Dabo was out of coaching at the time. So he had gotten out of coaching, didn't know if he wanted to coach or not, was in, I think, commercial real estate possibly. And I had a position come open. He sent me a resume, and I knew him, and I knew of him. And I said, Clemson's a pretty good place to coach. But Dabo was out of coaching. And I was when I hired Dabo, I actually kept some emails that said, man, why don't you go hire a guy that wasn't even coaching? I mean, here at Clemson, you hire by anybody you want to coach wide receivers. Why don't you go hire a guy that wasn't even coaching? And I can't find that guy now. Whoever wrote that email, he's hidden. But I remember one thing that stood out. Just to show you how God works in a guy's life. Dabo is a godly man.
Yes.
I recruited Tim Tebow and followed Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow, he's the real deal. There ain't nothing fake about him. I wish him all the success in the NFL. It would surprise me if he makes it. That man's a fighter. Dabo is a very strong, godly man. He's sincere and foundational. It's foundational in his DNA. But when I was, I think at Tulane, I went to First Baptist Church in Tuscaloosa. They asked me to come up there and speak on a Sunday. I went up there to speak. And after I spoke, I'd coached at Alabama as assistant. People came up after the service. And after I got through 15, 20 minutes talking to all those people, there was a guy over there standing with his wife waiting to talk to him. Dabo Swinney, Kathleen, his wife, had come to hear me talk. And when I got ready to hire somebody, that stood out in the back of my mind. I had two candidates. They interviewed them. They were both highly qualified. They're both really good coaches. And the thing that put him over the hump was the fact that I didn't hire all Christians on my staff. But that kind of put him over the hump. I said, well, I tell you what, I don't know if he's good. He came to hear me speak, and that says for something. And but I know he's a godly man. So, and then when I left, of course, he came and coached for me. He was a really, really excellent coach, excellent recruiter. And then when I left, I recommended him, even though I had some head coaches on the staff that usually when you leave in the middle of the season like that, the AD will take the older, experienced guy, let him ride out the storm for the last 6 weeks, and then open up the search and bring in. But I told the AD when he said he's going to make a change, I said, listen, this young guy, Dabo, I think he's got all the intangibles. Talk about his wife. I think a football wife is very important in this profession. Talk about Kathleen, Dabo, some of the intangibles he's had. And the AD, guy named Terry Don Phillips, did a great job, not only appointing him, when he had two guys on the staff that were, that really should have carried it out through the rest of six games, but made him the interim, and then made this tough decision of naming him as head coach afterwards. But just as faith would go, Dabo has had a tough life with his family structure. But again, him showing up on that Sunday morning with him and his wife, little did he know that I know that God would send him there and it'd be a difference. And he has surely done a great job.
I mean, you can't predict success, right? I mean, you can only look at what you know and what you've seen. But what he's done has been incredible to watch at Clemson. What has it been like for you to watch him and Clemson rise to the elite of the elite in college football these past 6 or 7 years?
I remember after he won the first national championship game, I called him and said, listen, if I'd known you were this good, I'd let you be the head coach when I was there. I'd still be there. But nobody anticipated that. I don't think he anticipated that. Every coach dreams of his success, envisions his success of winning national championships, of going undefeated. And I had been undefeated at Tulane and been coach of the year in the conference a couple of times, and surely had visions and goals and dreams of doing the same thing at Clemson. Did not, but I'm sure his success surprised him a little bit. It had to, because he's him and Nick Saban right now, tough college coaches, and what he's done there is just nobody would have thought that. He didn't, and I didn't. I know that.
But it goes beyond just success on the field too. When anytime you talk to any players that have played for him, and I've talked to him a bunch, it goes upon setting them up for future success, not just in the NFL, but as people, right? I'm sure you were the same way. It's like, I want you to do well in college. We want to win, but it goes further, way further beyond just becoming a professional football player, right?
Oh, there's no doubt. He wants them to be ambassadors. Number one, for Clemson University. Whenever in the community, whenever you're on a radio show, wherever you travel, you reflect more than you have more responsibility than just yourself. And then Dabo on top of that throws in the godly influence, because I think he does what I did when I was there. We took our team to church once a year, made it mandatory, and just to encourage them to get involved with a local church, like a lot of them did when they were young. But Dabo, I believe, like some Christian coaches did, Mark, Rick, and there would be others when they were coaching, that felt like in order for a player to be successful, he's got to make good decisions. What helps them make good decisions? Surely being involved with a local church. That's a group of people trying to make good decisions. Getting involved with the FCA. That's a group of athletes trying to learn how to make good decisions, good godly decisions. So I think he's a guy that promotes the whole package, at least from a Christian perspective. Be a great player, be a great ambassador from a civil, be involved with the community, but again, represent God, which he believes in Jesus Christ, and representing them also. So he promotes the total package and does it. And, baptizes a guy on the field, Samuel Watkins. He brought a rubber plastic swimming pool and baptized them out there on the practice field. Can you imagine what a great impact that had on those other 85 players? Samuel Watkins, an all-pro receiver, getting baptized on the field. So, yes, he's involved in the total package of a player other than just football skill.
Tommy, this has been great. I really appreciate your time being here on the show. My last question for you, you're in your mid-60s now, heading towards 70 in a few years. I often hear people talk about finishing the race of life well. And I'm curious for you, how does Tommy Bowden want to finish well with the time God gives you and the time you have left?
My grandsons are outside the door here, beating on the door here, trying to get in. Hey, shut that door. Right on cue.
Right on time.
I think that wasn't scripted, by the way. But the legacy I leave my son and my grandchildren, like my father did me, trying to be a man of God, a follower of Jesus Christ. I think it's important that my son and their spouses, and my daughter and her spouse and my grandchildren hear the words Jesus Christ from my body. We've taken Jesus Christ, we watered it down, diluted it, and compromise it by saying God, by saying religion, by saying a spiritual person, by saying a person of faith. Now, a Christian means Christ-like, a follower of Jesus Christ. That's right. So as I get older, I think it's important that I be a little more bold and not trying to gloss things over to appease the masses where I don't offend anybody. And if you study the life of Jesus Christ, he offended people several times, but I think it's important, my legacy, that as I get older, I still do faith-based speaking. I'm headed to Tennessee, Kentucky, just got out of Kansas, Nebraska. I'm going back to Nebraska, going to Kansas, and other places, speaking to a remnant, a remnant of people like God left over with the Israelites when they got captured by the Assyrians and Babylonians. There was a remnant of them left that grew into a great nation. And as I go out talking to these remnants, that God would give me the wisdom to say that, speak with boldness about Jesus Christ, and leave that legacy for my family and the places I'm fortunate to go to be an ambassador for God. What a great opportunity and an honor to go represent. I represent some great universities, Alabama, Auburn, Clemson, Florida State, going down the line. But, man, an opportunity to go stand in a pulpit or platform and represent him. That's a little bit bigger in those places.
Well, I'm a little younger than you. I'm 47, but I think about my legacy, and that's the exact answer I want to give. Like, I just want to be as bold as I can for Christ and represent him well, and watch my daughter represent Jesus well as she gets older. So I appreciate your answer, Coach. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here, Tommy Bowden. All the best to you, to your family, and continued success. And we'll hopefully have you back on again sometime. Thanks for joining us.
Have a good weekend. Thank you.
And many thanks to Tommy Bowden, the former Clemson head football coach, for joining us here today on Sports Spectrum. Lots of great stuff there. Lots of good nuggets about how he wants to finish his life well. Really great stories on meeting Dabo and bringing Dabo Swinney to Clemson. I love that him going to church and listening to Tommy speak stood out a little bit in his decision. And he said he doesn't hire all Christian coaches, but I thought that was a really awesome story of how Dabo made an impression on Tommy beyond the football field, which has led clearly to what Dabo has done at the University of Clemson now and all the success that they've had with national championships and seemingly in the picture for a title every single year. And I'm just excited because we're about a month away or so, maybe a little less, with college football returning in the 2021 season. And who doesn't love this time of year with football returning both from the college and the pro level? So excited for football and thankful to Tommy Bowden for sharing his story here on Sports Spectrum. We're also thankful to our partners today, Convoy of Hope. You check them out at convoynation.com. And we're thankful to you as well. Do us a favor, click subscribe on whatever app that you're listening to this podcast on. That way you never miss an episode of Sports Spectrum's podcast. 700 plus episodes out there for you to listen to. So if you're looking for a specific sport, a coach, a story, man, we've done a lot of them, and we'd love to have you check them out and tell someone about Sports Spectrum as well. The intersection of sports and faith. If you love sports and you love Jesus, this is the place to come and check out. We try to bring Jesus back into every conversation we have and intersect it with sports. We love you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time right here on Sports Spectrum. Have a great rest of your day, and stay safe.